System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Tuesday, July 28th. I'm Amin TMK alongside Amoja Lil Tanky Sumler. Amoja, hello. Happy Tuesday. What's going on with you, man?
Man, Tuesday it is. Just another wonderful day in the heart of the empire.
In the heart of the empire.
Maybe we should say the hot of the empire. Fucking
Yeah,
summer,
global
man.
warning is fun. El Nino and La Nina.
At the same damn
At the
time.
same damn time. Super El Nino on the way. Maybe one day we'll have an environmental episode. I always say that.
And man, hey, look, I gotta say, man, you know, everybody got their own thing on the left that they be on, but you are the patron saint of Beware the Ninos. You've been on that longer than anybody I've known, man. Long have you
Foretold this doom.
There it is.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we're gonna get in. Yeah, I gotta get on an environmental expert. We're gonna do an environmental episode because
young Tanky met a young charismatic TMK. I'm talking about, man. Doom, Ninos. I'm like, it only comes around like once every 20 years. You're tripping. It's not.
It's like those people who are like they're always with the church, and you know, you go to the bus and they're like, "Can I talk to you about El Nino?" You know, that's how I feel like that's how it is with me, you know.
Yeah, and now here we are, man. Worse than you. Yeah.
Look, okay, hey, we could do a Weather Channel episode if you want, but maybe we should talk into geopolitics. That's sort of our thing. I love the little conversations we have before we have to get started into the true doom and gloom.
The introduction to the work to get to the work.
There it is. Okay, Iran confirms Ukraine launched attacks on Iranian ships, killing Iranian sailors. This is from their official report. I believe this is in Farsi.
Farsi.
So, but it is pretty much a confirmed situation. We have an interview with Volodymyr Zelensky. I want to play it for you there, buddy.
Let's get it.
And maybe we can discuss a little bit more about this strike.
Are you worried about Iran potentially attacking you? They've threatened because of what happened with one of their vessels. Or is that not a concern?
And what do you think if Iran, from the first year of the war, gave new technology to Russia? It was Shahid drones. They gave thousands of these drones first year of the war. Then they gave licenses. What did they do? Did they attack us? I think yes. So they already did it.
And the war was already underway, effectively. They are attacking you.
Ooh, man, that's some circular logic.
We have to do everything not to open new front in any way, but we have to be honest. Iranians and North Koreans already attacked us.
I heard some chuckling there in the background.
I couldn't believe he was going to keep going. I love it. Hey, look, man, it makes a lot of sense for Zelensky, right? And this goes back to what we've been saying at Inner City Left for quite some time. This is a global conflict. These conflicts are not isolated. It's not like Ukraine decided to have a problem with Russia and then, you know, big brave EU came to their defense to help them. All of this has been coordinated for some time. And even now, with these direct escalations, with the Ukrainians attacking the Iranians, and that's what this was, right? They hit a commercial ship that was transporting goods. It was a Russian ship trading goods with Iranians, which those are neighbor countries. They share a border with the Caspian Sea, right? So like this is normal things that happen. And this is no different from their Wildberry exercises where they're just going out and hitting things. It seems like chaos, right? And then his argument is, well, you know, the Iranians gave them drones and they hit us with drones. This is the power of proxies, you know, and even then, right, it still seems a little bit tenuous. So ask yourself why. Why does Zelensky want to connect himself? Well, if all the rumors are true that's out there, New York Times and all of these outlets that are, seem to be intimating that the United States is low on their missile defense and all of those things, if those stories are true, that means that the Americans are going to be concentrating their missile defense in the Levant, in places like Jordan, the Gulf countries, Israel, right? Not Ukraine. So how do you get tapped back in? How do you get tapped back in? You try to make like this conflict is directly connected. And let's be honest, it is. But it's not for Ukraine to acknowledge that, right? Because the shadow game is happening from the Americans. The shadow game is, once again, the Americans against the Chinese. The Americans assume that Iran and Russia are the Chinese proxies, right? The Chinese and the Russians know for a fact the Israelis, the Ukrainians, the Europeans are, in fact, American proxies, okay? So what do you want to do in war? You want to commit your proxies as long as you can. Those are your reserve troops. Your troops are special. You want to save your troops. So what do? When you start to lose an American, when you start to lose multiple Americans, when we have reports like over 200 U.S. casualties in the Iran war since July 7, you send other bodies. This is the brilliance of the American foreign policy. I remember in the Bush years, being amazed and aghast at how many mercenary armies were in Iraq. We've moved past mercenary armies. We now have mercenary countries. Ukraine is a mercenary country. How do we make ourselves relevant again? How do we get tapped back in or to suckle from the pig of the American war machine excess? Pick on somebody we know they hate. See if they can fund us. See if they could juice us back in. Throw us in there. And we already have reports of Ukrainians all around the world using themselves in such a way, not as like a force, not like a Wagner, but like as a state entity. We have Ukrainians that are in the Syrian conflict right now being used as mercenary muscle. We have reports from the Iraqi premier and the parliament that there have been Ukrainian groups working and doing false flags, that have been pinned on other countries. We have Ukrainians assaulting in Burkina Faso and Mali. They're using their muscle everywhere that covert armies are needed, where muscle has to be applied, but we can't necessarily lose an American. That's the key. But that, once again, that shows the game, because it's not for the Ukrainians to say this is a global conflict. It's not for them to put themselves out there like that. And there's a conversation that's happening about that right now. It's important to say Zelensky is in Washington, D.C. right now, and the plays are being drawn right now, Either he'll be accepted or his pitch will be denied, but one way or the other is I think we have a pretty good idea of who will be setting the policy, and it's not going to be Zelensky.
Not the only person coming to the United States. Benjamin Netanyahu going to be heading to U.S. for a Trump meeting to discuss Iran. The Israeli leader will also attend the funeral of long lost, not forgotten though, Senator Lindsey Graham. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu departed Israel on Monday for the U.S., where he will meet with President Trump and also attend the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham. In remarks before boarding his plane, Netanyahu noted that it would mark his 8th meeting with Trump since the U.S. president returned to office in January 2025. Tanky, we now have Netanyahu sort of this back and forth now of, is the United States back at war with Iran? Is Iran at war with Israel? Is Israel at war with Lebanon? And I think, you talked about Zelensky being here. Now you have Netanyahu on his way. What are your thoughts on this meeting, and kind of what does it mean for the war in Iran right now?
I mean, it just goes to show you how useful Lindsey Graham is to the neocon efforts, even in death. He's presided now an opportunity for all of these people to come into DC. We're gonna honor the late great Lindsey Graham, and what's gonna happen is once again the players are gonna get called out. Now, this is important to acknowledge, right? Because Netanyahu being there is fascinating. There's long been whispers that Netanyahu and Zelensky don't really care for each other, But to be fair, a lot of people have complicated feelings about Zelensky. Even the Iranians called him the beggar of Europe. Like we have been attacked by the beggar of Europe. So you can be sure there's only, again, assuming the New York Times is telling the truth and there's a limited amount of resources, you can be sure Netanyahu is here to talk to the Americans and be like, if that's true, make sure it's us. We still getting them, right? Whatever he doing, we still getting them, right? But also talking about next steps, right? The war, it's foolish to assume on any level that the war is over because nothing has been resolved. In fact, if anything, it's in a worse state than where we began. What we continue to hear about are these episodes where the Americans are attempting to open the Straits of Hormuz, even though, right now we're told that, we're in a peacetime again, as the president continues to work out what the plan is going to be. But the Straits of Hormuz are closed, and they weren't before the attacks. I do think it's worth noting, though, right? This should be the death knell of all of the liberals that are going around with their Palestine pens and the Ukraine pens, because you can't be for both of these things, not in an honest and real way. When it's been demonstrated time after time that Zelensky is willing to be the boogeyman. He's willing to do the dirty work of the empire. This is not the action of a nation that is under offense. This is an act of a person who is willing to sell his people down to the very last man so long as the spice flows. And in this case, the spice means the aid. But the game is up. People see this, and there's only so much longer it can be played because they're losing on the battlefield. There are huge and cauldrons all over the battlefield where just thousands of Ukrainian troops are surrounded on three sides by Russian forces that are pushing in. The Donbass is almost completely liberated. The Odessa port, which was their last sea lifeline, is essentially blockaded. Nothing can get through. So again, the Ukrainians, they do their pinprick attacks, but the material conditions for Ukraine continue to get worse. He's down here now as an act of desperation. He wants to tie these things together in an overt way. And Netanyahu's just here to make sure you remember first and foremost me before anything that happens with them. I think the last thing I want to say about Netanyahu is it demonstrates once again the fake levels of progressiveness that we see from the Mamdani type people. Yeah, it's true. You probably couldn't have held Benjamin Netanyahu, but you're the mayor of an American city. What we know about America is anyone can be arrested. President Trump was arrested in New York. Okay, so there's no way you can tell me the president can be arrested with and now he was the president at the time, but you still have a Secret Service retinue for life. All of the bodyguards that a billionaire would have. This man was arrested. So it's impossible to believe that you couldn't have arrested him. Now, it's improbable you could have held him, but let's talk about to take a man like Netanyahu and put him in handcuffs, an experience he's probably never felt before. To be perp walked into a New York jail, the way Nicolas Maduro is right now in New York. So, again, man, those of y'all that's still on the Mamdani Kool-Aid, oh, wow, he called Netanyahu a bad name. That's the lowest hanging fruit that we all know about. Come on, y'all. We got to be past this. We got to be smarter than this.
Yeah, I mean, irregardless, it's just like you said, Nicolas Maduro is still in a 6x10 cell somewhere in New York. And it's not, there's been so much of the, conversation surrounding Mamdani from the Democrat elite, the ones that are not the sort of DSA vibes or the traditional Democrats, the mama bear Democrats, if you will, the Pelosi Democrats. Not that I see a big difference or that we see a big difference in them in general, because it's about what you do and it's not about the rhetoric that you utilize. And again, I think it just takes away from the third party candidates that we have. People like Butch Ware out there really putting in work. People like Claudia De La Cruz out there putting in real work. And we have to applaud DSA like it's a win for us. And it's not. Because I think if it was one of them, I think it was Jill Stein that was the mayor of New York, not to say that she would run for that we would see Benjamin Netanyahu in cuffs, even if it's for a brief amount of time. And again, the ICC exists. I mean, this is Rubio not a week ago. He got warrants. This is Rubio not a week ago trying to discredit the ICC and discredit. And I don't know if you saw this, Benjamin Netanyahu, he came out and he was like, that dude in the ICC, he sexually harasses women. He's a lot of allegations, started already throwing that out there. So
it's so easy. It's so easy to bury somebody. Again, you're guilty by association. And this is what identity politics and gotchaism politics have led us to, where accused is literally guilty, and someone like Benjamin Netanyahu can kill people to the point of genocide and yet cast moral aspersions on other people.
Yeah, because it's just sort of the thing to do. Everyone knows that, there are a few things that you just don't, you can't do as a person. And they try to throw that at you in your face, even though right now in Palestinian jails, Palestinians are being essayed by literal animals, dogs. This is at the level the Israelis are at. But anyway, I mean, I don't want to get I think everyone understands that and understands that the people at the ICC, and I think it's similar to kind of how I feel about the UN in some ways. Not really, nothing has been done quite yet, but they stood on business even more than the UN, I thought. So, that entity that challenges the West and the Zionist West specifically has to be stopped at all costs. Just to let you know that it was never really about anything, unless it was, we feel like taking down this so-called African warlord and bring him to justice. But when it comes to an actual application of justice,
of a genocide that we've all seen all across TikTok,
so obvious that people
doing
on
reports, Al Jazeera, for God's sake.
They're literally, we talked about this too, Amoja. I guess your thoughts on this. It's really becoming illegal to discredit or say something negative about Israel or Zionists. And it's not just in the United States. I think it's already like 39 states in the United States where
it's much worse in Europe. Much worse in Europe.
Yeah, and the UK and stuff, man. So we're seeing that all over the Western world. I mean, you can't even critique Israel. All this conversation surrounding TikTok and people, I think no matter what, man, no matter what they do, the damage has been done. And people have radically changed the way that they think about Israel, even though they already had a negative connotation for a long time. I mean, now it's even worse. Even their apologists have to come out and point the finger at Benjamin Netanyahu. Usually this is kind of the Bernie Sanders thing now, where it's like, Netanyahu is the terrible person. We have to get him out. And once we're able to do that, we're going to be able to, get back onto the two-state solution. And who is it we just listened to? The dude, the Def Jam. He did Def Jam.
Russell Simmons.
Russell Simmons.
Y'all don't understand everything that the Jewish people have done for black people. I say this as a black Jew. You just don't understand, simple fucks.
Dude, Russell Simmons was such a huge figure for, I think, my generation growing up, in the creation of Def Jam. And Def Jam was such a huge part of growing up for me. And it's like at the top, it's just the Zionist, man. And it sucks.
And he had his little op with him all along. Rick Rubin is an op.
Rick Rubin. Oh, so you don't play any instruments? You don't have any musical technical ability? No, he was doing an interview with Anderson Cooper. It's pretty crazy. I mean, look, if you know, you
With
know.
his
I know
toes out there trying to interview these billionaires, tell you about why, like, we gonna make this dystopia. You want this dystopia. You want it. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Rubin is kind of hard to not see that he's just a plant from the beginning. I just anyway, we're getting a little bit off track here. But anyway, I think the conversation now when it comes to Iran now confronting Ukraine, which I think that's what Arachi said. I'm not quite sure, but I think it was pretty much, they're ready.
They reserve the right. They reserve the right.
Reserve the right. So that's a warning enough. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that dealing with Ukraine is a luxury. I don't think that Iran will rise to the bait because their most likely way of retaliation, the thing that they're most adept at, rocket use and missiles, you would have to fire over people that might not understand. You would have to fire, your missiles over Russian airspace or fly them over Azerbaijani airspace or over Turkish airspace, right? It's not so much that the Iranian capability cannot hit Ukraine. It probably can. But what more can they do than the Russians are already doing, right? They're not going to hit them with an Orishnik. And you see what I'm saying? And you would have to bait NATO. Like flying missiles over Turkey is baiting NATO. Like you're just inviting a NATO retaliation because you're violating their airspace, right? And so that's not what I think they'll do. I honestly, I think the plane doesn't change. You don't rise to the bait. There was an Iranian professor who had put out what the core thesis of what the Iranians are trying to do. They're trying to destroy the American economy. They want to make sure the American economy is destroyed and that it happens under Trump specifically, right? They want to take 20% of the oil that's coming out of the region. And like if they were to have just like high oil prices for 2 years, that would be the end of Trump. Right, one way or the other. Like even as he's making these jokes about, I'm gonna run again, which may or may not be a little funny joke, but the negotiations have failed for more than 20 years. It's not like they're gonna have a conversation and it's going to get fixed, right? The fact of the matter is, you hurt Ukraine by hurting the global economy, right? That's a safer way to do it, and that's what they're already doing with Hormuz, right? Taking on the luxury of direct military confrontation with Ukraine is foolhardy because they have a lot of ways to get to you because they're essentially the West. They're the mercenary army of the West, the whole country. How they're ending up in Iraq, that's not surprising. They're working through Turkey. They're probably working in Syria with Julani. That's giving them direct access to lots of places in the Levant. And you're not going to have access to retaliate in those kind of ways. In this way, Ukraine can be more asymmetric than Iran. Iran's skill is asymmetric war. And in that way, Ukraine has a way of touching them that would be harder for them to touch back. I think they just don't rise to the bait and continue doing exactly what they're already doing.
Yeah, I guess time will tell. And certainly Iran is still carrying out their strikes against the Arab allied countries. Bahrain, those Amazon data centers are not safe. The barracks in places like Kuwait and Jordan, not safe. Yeah,
that's a way better bet than trying to, hit some target in Ukraine, because again, all of this is one unified war effort. That's what we're learning with like the Defense Authorization Act, where like the Israelis are being brought in, into a detail level with everything with the Americans, right? The Ukrainians are juiced in with British intel, which gives them access to, so everything that we tell the Brits, then the Brits can tell the Ukrainians, and everybody has all of this intel working in a shared platform, which is again why it's so ironic, right? That people insist that the Iranians are getting their intel from the Russians or somehow getting it from the Chinese. It's possible. And even if they are, this is the standard operating procedure. This is how the West has operated for decades.
Yeah, and as Zelensky said, if you're getting technology from another country, well, I guess you're at war with them, huh? So all the logistics and technology that the United States is giving Ukraine, you should say that Russia is in direct war with Ukraine. I'm sorry, with the United States and Europe, because Europe is sending their weapons as well. I mean, we're hearing about storm shadows all the time. And also, I mean, the UK, we talked about the new guy that's in there right now, already saying, hey, we can do strikes from here. You want to do strikes on Iran from our base? Cool. And Iran has been like, just letting you know, that means it's on with y'all too.
Yeah. He's 100% with the shits. It's a one united West against anybody that will not bow to the hegemony.
Yeah. Let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners who are available everywhere you find podcasts: Spotify, Apple, Pocket Cast, all the good stuff. YouTube, like, subscribe, put your stars in the comments if you made it this far. I've been seeing more stars in the comments. We love it. We appreciate it. Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins, right behind me. Buy that thing. Merch store is open. InnerCityLeft.com. TMK everywhere you find music. Lil Tanky everywhere you find music. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. Shout out to our patrons. Y'all the real heroes. Love you like cooked food. Tanky, what did we miss? Final thoughts. What's going on?
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting to watch, and we'll have to do an episode soon, is there is a lot of upheaval that is happening in Taiwan right now. There's a big food recall where La Qingda brought in all of this American food cooking oil, and there was a huge epidemic, not unlike what's happening in America with our food, but in the rest of the world, they care when you poison them with the food. And there's been protests, huge protests all throughout Taiwan, and more than 60% of the population disapprove of the DPP. And that is the largest political party that's really kind of like for pro-independence. Be interesting to watch, and we'll be circling back to that soon.
Yeah, certainly. Taiwan definitely going to be more and more of a conversation as the world war continues. I know some people don't want to say that, but I think with Ukraine getting involved, I mean, how many countries need to be involved? So
Zelensky said it.
Yeah, there it is. For Amoja, Lil Tanky Summer, I'm Amin Team K. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.